Thank you everyone for joining us today. And this is the first ever meetup that is going to be happen on Traefik Islamabad community. And today I'm really excited that I'm joined by my guest Mert Yetir is also organizing a traffic meetup for Istanbul. And today we are talking about how traffic is fit into the cloud native ecosystem. When you're talking about the cloud native stuff, we're talking about Docker, Kubernetes, and Kubernetes is not alone a thing. Kubernetes came up with some networking solution, some storage solution, some container runtime. So there's a whole a lot of things moving on. And today we are talking about how traffic is providing a solution for like what's the Ingress, where service mesh capabilities built in with traffic. It's a very lightweight one as compared to Istio or any other Linkerd and other stuff. Is a very lightweight service mesh kind of a things. And also there's a ton of modes like traffic pilot, what traffic pilot it is for, and how it what use case is going to solve. And all these questions is going to be answered by my guest Mert Yetir. Over to you, Mert, and had very appreciated your time, appreciated your energy for showing up today and giving us an introduction to cloud native traffic cloud native products and traffic cloud native ecosystem. Over to you, Mert.
Thank you very much, Sam. I am very excited to be here today, and thanks for having me. I want to start with introducing myself, and I'm working as a software architect, and I am an Azure MVP and a Traefik ambassador. I am not a DevOps guy. As I said, I am a software architect, but I like DevOps products so much, and Traefik is a great product, and it has lots of products that we will talk about today. But today I want to focus on two products. One of them is Traefik Proxy, and the other one is Traefik Pilot. And I'm going to mention about Traefik Mesh a little bit, maybe at the end if we have a time. So shall we begin?
Yes, definitely.
Okay. This is Traefik's documentation. By the way, Traefik has a very good documentation, and it is one of the best I have ever seen. There are lots of samples and pictures on it. So this is the main page. If you want to learn Traefik Proxy, this is the best place. So what is Traefik? Let me give you an example. When you go to, for example, the shopping mall, and you want to go to the food court, and normally you go to the information desk and ask about how can I go to the food court. Or another example, you want a video game store and you don't know which floor it is in, or is there any video game store in the shopping mall. You go to the information desk again and ask about is there a video game store, or how can you go to there. So Traefik is like that. It's like a information desk. For example, let me tell you on the image. When you want to go to the API server hosted on Kubernetes, you enter api.domain.com, and that request comes to Traefik, and he knows where that request must go, and it redirects to the correct orchestration tool, correct service, and something like that. So it's a cloud native edge router. It is a official definition of Traefik. But Traefik has a special feature. You know, there are lots of edge routers. It has auto service discovery. So it's my preferred feature. It means you don't need to change any configuration when you change anything in your infrastructure. It automatically detects the changes and make the redirection according to it. So I want to show it from demo later. And let's go through the concepts. This is a similar image, and you can find the detailed information about auto service discovery. It uses providers for auto service discovery. For example, it has Docker provider, Kubernetes provider, and when it's used that providers, it's automatically get the changes from that provider. So you don't need to change anything, as I said. And if we talk about it is configuration, there are two types of configuration in Traefik. First one is dynamic configuration. It comes from the providers. And the other one is static configuration. You can use CLI or environment variables, or you can use a configuration file, a YAML or TOML format. Today, I am going to use CLI for it is easier to tell. Okay, so today I am going to make demos from on Docker, and I have a little surprise for you. And as you can see, I am going to make my demo on Apple Silicon today, because everybody is excited about how Docker runs on Apple Silicon, and today we can see it, how it works. Okay, by the way, I am using Elysis, D for Docker, DC for Docker Compose. So this is a basic configuration. Let's get to it. This is the version 3.3, and I've defined two services. First one is Traefik, and I am going to use the latest version. I think it is 2.4.8. And I am going to set some commands. This is the CLI configuration sample. I define ports, and this is the provider definition. I am going to listen Docker socket here. And the second one is my service. I am going to use the Traefik home image, so we can see its IP address and internal information about the container. And this is the main definition part. So we can enable the traffic and define routers, which I am going to tell soon. So let's get back to the command section. Okay, we define an entry point. It's like when you send a request, it must be come to an entry point. You can think it's the shopping mall entrance or the information desk. And it is using port 80. And I'm going to use Docker provider here. And this is using the API insecure. Please do not use on production, because it means I am going to expose Traefik APIs without any authentication, but we can use it on demo purposes. And I am going to expose two ports, port 80 for endpoint and 8080 for Docker, Traefik dashboard. And I define routers here. This is my endpoint address, and this is definition for my command for endpoint. Okay, let's compose f basic configuration up, and I'm going to run each detect. Okay. Let's try to check if it's okay here. Okay, this is my container running in localhost. And let's check it from browser. Okay. So you can see the contains detail. It's IP, remote address. This is my host name, user agent, and you can see other information. Okay, so now we will look at the Traefik dashboard. Okay, this is the famous and the great Traefik dashboards. As you can see, this is the version 248. This is the endpoints we defined in the Docker Compose file, 80 for Traefik dashboards and 80 for the endpoint. And we can see three important components of Traefik: routers, services, and middlewares. Routers make the routing job, as you can understand from its name. When you send a request to endpoint, it comes to a router, and router forward it to the service, and service handles the required redirection. And let's look at this. And as you can see, there are lots of services. And the services has Docker logo is my services defined in my Docker Compose file, and other one is the internal services, and the Traefik use its own services like this. For example, if you open the dashboard, it uses a dashboard service, and for API access, it uses API service. Let's look at my service. So this is mean when my request come to router, it redirects to the service, and this service sends to my container. You can see its IP address. And I'll talk about middlewares a bit later. So you can switch to routers like this. For example, if I come to localhost, the router sends to my service, and my service sends to my container. Okay, and it is working as TCP or UDP also. And there are you can use Prometheus and Datadog, InfluxDB, and other open source projects for tracing or looking at metrics. You can also implement in here, and you can see it there. And for the provide section, it shows which provider I am using right now. And also one of the best features is the tool tracking. The services. Okay, now we have one container run. Now I do it up service and set to 3 components. Okay. I'm going to refresh. So I did the configuration file. Let's refresh the browser, and now I can see 3 of my containers. And let me refresh my requests. As you can see, it is load balancing now. The host name is changing. And I didn't change anything. And this is called auto site discovery, and it's a great feature. Also, let's, I think I forgot to put detached. Okay. Let's stop them. Okay. Turn on. Okay. Let's see if everything is down. That's the basic Traefik introduction. Let's look at the other features. By the way, you can use Traefik container image, or you can use it binaries, or if you want to compile them from source, you can access source code on GitHub. Also, you can see other options here. Also, you can use a Helm chart for Kubernetes. And let's talk about other features. And you can, as I showed before, you can use load balancing and routing. You can also use HTTPS and TLS. There are some good samples here. You can use Let's Encrypt. And you can also use HTTPS redirection. And before I want to talk about the pilot, I want to talk about the middlewares. And it is another great feature. As you can see, there are lots of middlewares here. Okay. When I talk about the Traefik router and service, I said when you send your request, it comes to endpoint, then router, and router sent to a related service. But you can define middlewares. When your request comes to router, you can redirect your request to the defined middlewares. You can use more than one middleware together, and you can chain them together. And after all the middlewares and it go to the service, so you can tweak your request on router section. It's a great feature. I want to make some demo. By the way, you can access all of the codes I will show today and others on my GitHub repository. Okay, let's make a basic authentication. So let's imagine you have a service and you don't have any authentication implemented, and your customer wants to add an authentication and make it more secure. Normally, you have to write some code and add authentication. It is not a couple of line codes. You have to add maybe a class or a couple of methods together. You need to test your application again. You need to publish to production. There are lots of stuff like this. But if you use Traefik for this job, it is only a couple of lines of definition. These are the same. It's with the basic configuration file. Now I am going to add some labels here. This is the same router definition, but I am going to add some middleware here, named my authentication. You can give whatever you want here. It's an open text. So I define a name, middleware, and define its type. It's a basic authentication. And I'm going to define a users for it. And this is my username and this is my password. And how can I use it? We can use a password command. And I use a password and my username. Okay. Okay. This is a generated password. As you can see, there are $2 sign here, but there is only one here. You need to escape the $sign to use it. You need to edit the second one in the configuration file. Okay. Let's run this Docker compose. I'm going to use configuration. Authentication up and paste. Okay. This is my localhost. Now it's asking for a username and password. Okay. Now I'm in. just a couple of configuration, and I have added an authentication to my application. Let's get the dashboard. Okay, look at middlewares. Now you can see my authentication middleware here. Maybe you can ask, I don't want to see my hash password here. The best practice is storing this configuration in a configuration file, not on the Docker Compose. So also this is not the only option. You can also use digest authentication. It's more secure than more than basic, and also you can use forward authentication. If you have another authentication server, you can forward your authentication to this server and use your own authentication server. You don't need to implement it on middlewares. And let's have a look to other middleware samples. For example, you can use buffering, and you can tweak the size of the request. If it's too big, you can return the request into large error. And also you can use more than one middleware at the same time with chaining feature. And the circuit breaker, it's a well-known feature for applications. It means when your application returning an error or exception, you don't need to send new request to it because it generates lots of exception again and make your log file bigger. So when you define a circuit breaker, if your application or microservice send an exception or error code, you don't send that new request to your service and return error codes back to your API call. This is also have a little configuration. You can find all the configuration examples in this document. Also, you can have add headers, IP whitelisting, rate limiting, or some redirection for your path on your URL. You can also add, remove. You can do that with a regex definition. And I want to talk about the other one is the error page. For example, you don't have custom error pages for your application and you want to add some nice looking error pages. You can use that error page middleware. And for example, for HTTP return code 500, you can redirect it to a different error page, or for 400, you can redirect it to another page. The important thing is the page is not stored in Traefik. You can redirect them to another service or another container. You can find some samples on GitHub to implement this one. And let's get to, before Traefik Pilot, I want to talk about the observability part. You can use tracing or see your metrics with Datadog, InfluxDB, Prometheus. And for tracing, you can use Jaeger, Zipkin, and Instana, Haystack, and Elastic. You can find their same configuration here. And for the operation part, it's about the dashboard, and it has an API. We have seen on the dashboard. You can, maybe you want to use that API, not to use the nice Traefik dashboard. You want to develop your own dashboard. You can use that APIs here. And let's get to Traefik Pilot. Okay, there is a notification here. It asks me to connect with Traefik Pilot. Traefik Pilot is a centralized solution that you can track your different Traefik instances from one place. Okay, let's connect Traefik Pilot. Okay, there's a problem with the Traefik pilot today. Let's try it again. If it works. I think there's a problem with Traefik pilot. I cannot show you today, sorry. But it's looked like there's a sample here. Pilot. Yeah. Yeah, I'm looking for a screenshot. No. Okay, with Traefik pilot, you will register your Traefik instances. It gives you a token when you click register, and you add it your configuration file, and after that you will see your Traefik instance metrics, its health, and it has other information on Traefik pilot's dashboard. Also, you can define some alerts with email or for your webhook. You can define it there. Let's try again. Maybe this time. Okay. I think that's okay now. Okay, this is, let's get to the menus before register my instance. Okay, you can define alert types, health check and security. And this is the alert methods. You can define an email. Okay, and I'm going to send the test email. Okay, save. And also you can see your metrics. Okay, my mail is here. Let's open it. And this is the sample mail from Traefik pilot. So you can receive notifications. And this is another great part, plugins. You can now add some nice features by adding plugins. Some of them is official plugins by Traefik Labs, but like this, Notepad. And other ones are from the community. You can also create your own plugin. I think that is a marketplace for plugins. You can also define provider type or middleware type plugin. Let's look at middleware type. There is a nice sample, and how can you write a plugin? It is written with Go. If you know how to code with Go, it is very easy to write your own plugin. And after that, you publish it to Traefik pilot and use your own plugin. Okay, instance. I want to register an instance. I have three options: file, YAML, toml, and CLI. I'm going to copy it and okay. Let's go to the basic one. Basic configuration. Okay. Sorry. Not copied it. Let's try again. CLI. Copy. Okay. not save it. Config. Okay. Now I can see my Traefik instance right here. And also I can track my different instances metrics with changing this drop down list. You can see last day, last week, or even last month. Also, I received a new email. Okay. Did you go? There's a heartbeat mail come from. Okay. Here. Let's go to the dashboard again. And anything I not mentioned? Okay, this is the basic Traefik proxy. And let's talk about it with Traefik Mesh. And before I want to talk about the enterprise edition and the source version differences, you can look at it in Traefik/pricing. You can see the main differences in the page. For example, the difference is there is no API portal in open source version, but in enterprise there's an API portal, and service mesh is included. Or for scalability options, there are mostly also scalability options in enterprise version. And for security, you can use different types. And there's a big list. If you are curious about the enterprise edition, you can look at that page. And let's look at about other products. This is the Traefik Proxy, and the Traefik Enterprise is the Enterprise Edition. We talked about the pilot. Okay, let's look at the Traefik Mesh. Traefik Mesh is the Traefik Labs service mesh solution, but it is a bit different than the standard service mesh. So let's talk about what service mesh is, and I want to show it from my blog posts. Okay. No. Okay. Let's imagine you have 4 microservices and they are communicating each other. To implement this functionality, you need to write this, for example, your APIs inside your containers, but we don't want to do it because it's adding more development costs to your microservice, and another unnecessary feature, because we can do it with service mesh. And for this kind of communication, we can use some proxies. It is you can put the proxies near to your microservice, and it is not only for communication. You can also use authentication, load balancing, and other needs. And this is called sidecar, and this mesh topology is called service mesh. And I get a new heartbeat from my Traefik instance. And another service mesh solution using this kind of sidecars, but the Traefik is not just sidecar. It is adding an output, and it's responsible for communicating between other nodes. So it is not practical for services, and it is the service mesh. And if you want to, okay, yes, this is a clear image. There is only one Traefik Mesh image, not for every pod. Also, you can find its features and documentation. Okay, another topic. Do you have any question, by the way?
I have a question, but it's a confusion on my side. So when we say Traefik and Traefik 2, these are the Traefik Proxy mostly.
Sorry, I couldn't understand your question.
When in Kubernetes, when you use Traefik, it's we usually use Traefik or Traefik 2. So this is basically the proxy, correct?
Yes, you can use it with ingress in Kubernetes, but it is not just a proxy because you can use it with as an API gateway, as an ingress, or if you, it is not like, let me show you on documentation. Configuration. Okay, you can define it, sorry, as an ingress or an ingress route or a gateway API. It looks like just a proxy, but you can use it different purposes. I didn't mention the other orchestration tools. There are lots of tools you can implement it. For example, also you can find the user scenarios here and configuration samples for ingress routes or how to put it in, use it as ingress or gateway API.
Okay, so my follow-up question is that when you showed us the comparison table between the enterprise and open source one, for example, the open source one didn't support Let's Encrypt, but we do use Let's Encrypt and with Cert Manager with Traefik ingress controller. So I guess
okay.
I guess what they are saying, it's like not out of the box. You have to do some work yourself.
No, you can. It supports Let's Encrypt in open source version, but let's have a look with what is the exact difference.
Yeah, here.
Yes, it's distributed Let's Encrypt is not supported.
Okay. Got you.
Because there is a in the documentation. Okay, you can find samples in HTTPS TLS section here. By the way, this documentation is for the open source version.
Yes.
It is already supported. And you can use it on production. You don't need to, if you don't need all these features for the enterprise, you can use the open source version on production.
Okay, good. Okay.
And it has a very good community, and you can, if you have a problem, you can ask the community and Traefik ambassadors, or also the Traefik community forum. You can easily get an answer, and there are lots of people eager to help you.
Okay. The last question, when you talked about the service mesh, is it also, do they have in their roadmap the SMI, the standard that Kubernetes is trying to, like a plugin interface, so like the CNI, the CSI, so basically you'll have a service mesh interface where in your Kubernetes platform you can connect Linkerd, or you can connect to STO, or you can connect to, let's say, Traefik service mesh. So basically, there would be like common interfaces to connect to plug into.
And I think I don't know the exact answer, but I can learn it and get back to you soon,
Okay.
if that's okay for you.
Yeah, that's okay. I have a hard
Because
break
I need to
at the end of the hour.
ask about it. I don't want to misdirect you.
I'll put you the standard on the chat.
Okay.
So, but can I take it this question because SMI stuff? So, what the service mesh interface is, because I have a member of open source community that's called Meshuri, and they are putting up the efforts of building out the service mesh interface, so that anybody can insert, like say, let's say we can integrate canary deployments or Bluegate drive deployments or Docklog deployments, but in a way that it's become a standard for everyone, regardless being everyone deploy by different ways. Why not we deploy in a certain way, become a standard, and that they implement the standard itself? So yes, it's going to be, but I think Maish is a very different pronunciation for the Traefik Mesh. I used to call it Traefik.
Yes, it is rebranded as Traefik Mesh, I
But
think.
yes,
Yeah.
but actually people call it Maish. It's really difficult.
Yeah.
But actually, I think Traefik Mesh is a very tremendous way, because we all know service mesh is a really complicated topic, and
Yeah.
integrated in a different solution give you a lot of cost, because every pod now has a sidecar, and implementing the another sidecar increases a lot of burden. What the traffic mesh does is define a daemon set on every node in the Kubernetes cluster, so you can route traffic into the daemon set environment, and then they bounce back the traffic to the different pods. What had happened is, right now, let's say for the connection is established and they put out the request to ourselves, and the daemon sets collect that traffic and then route that to different road. But then for the SMI question that you raise out, I think right now service mesh interface is a kind of a challenging for different companies like Istio. I don't so they are eager to adopt that. Linkerd kind of adopted that. Console adopted, but in a very different way. So it's a kind of a tussle for everyone to adopt that standard. But with people's all putting out after, so everyone can affect to that. But I don't think so. I think Traefik Mesh doing this kind of stuff because they're doing it in a very different way, right? They are not using a sidecar in any way. Yes, you're using a daemon set on the Kubernetes cluster and then routing the traffic. So it's a very faster way, and it's a very tremendous amount of stuff that they provide a service mesh. Let's say we can say that Kubernetes mesh is a K3S of service mesh. Like we already know that Kubernetes is a very complex topic, but what K3S does is a very faster, and we don't need to manage a lot of stuff. What mesh does is kind of a similar to that. You can implement that service mesh, but it's a very faster way. But how can using the traffic mesh as well? But for the question like SMI, I don't think so. They are adopting that. I kind of circle back into the community what they are thought about it, because I think if they adopt, it's a kind of very interesting scenarios be coming up, because they are implementing a service mesh in a very different way, but it's a very faster one. Hope that answered your question, Wali.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. So yes, that was my understanding too, and I was wondering if Traefik Labs have the same inspiration to follow these standards and the same roadmap as the cloud native ecosystem. Exactly. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. And merge with a few questions from let's wrap up the discussion. It was a very wonderful demo that you showed up. And one thing that I think people learn that the silicon chip is a very faster one. That's a really faster one because I see you can run a Docker Compose command and it spun up container in a very faster way. That's I think one thing that I noted today with your demos on. So kind of because and now the first question from my side, the traffic side, because we all know Kubernetes ingress is a very difficult topic, and traffic is one of the famous one providing us ingress controller in the Kubernetes ecosystem, and it's a very tremendous one. Like what you showed up, the traffic pilot stuff, traffic enterprise have a lot of features. Traffic mesh is a very awesome one, the faster doing a service mesh kind of a stuff. So the ingress stuff is that we have a middleware, and what the middleware I think does is that let's say we can deploy you can implement any patterns with it as well, like a middleware does. You can do circuit breaking as well using a middleware. And also the traffic ingress, what I think is in this space it does is that it also watches the pod as well. Do they are healthy, or what their status are, do they shut down or not, what the conditions are. And because if we don't use the traffic in there, we have to implement the liveness probe, readiness for the Kubernetes itself. But traffic is doing a very tremendous job, not just routing the traffic, but checking whether the pod is healthy, it stay up and living, and then it wants the traffic, then route the traffic into it. Can you elaborate this in a few words on more details?
Yes, by the way, regarding to the middleware samples, you can find all the demos in our Traefik Labs Turkey YouTube channel. I know it's in Turkish, but you can watch the demos because I did every single one of them on that session and on VS Code and the sample containers. And I am not a Kubernetes expert about make a comment on this issue. But as a developer, I can say the middleware is a lifesaver feature because let's show you an example. You can see my screen, right?
Yes, definitely. I can see you.
Okay. Let's continue on the same example. I need to add basic authentication to my application, and I'm a .NET developer. And I'm going to search on Google Basic Authentication C#. Okay. Okay, this is official Microsoft documentation and basic authentication ASP.NET. I click that and read that documentation. Let's imagine I have no idea about how to implement basic authentication. There are some going to use I only implement a source code. I have a sample source code here, and just look at basic authentication. There's a class, and it is going on. Okay, and also I need the condition to my sample. There are lots of codes here, and I did only one or two lines of configuration to my middleware. For a developer, this is a for a developer, this is a very good feature. And the other good feature is it's also a new feature for Traefik Proxy. Writing your custom middleware is also a developer-friendly feature because there are lots of middlewares, but maybe you want to implement a different feature and it's not covered by the built-in middlewares. So you can implement your own middleware, edit the marketplace, and other people consume your middleware as well. It's a great thing for the open source community, by the way. It's a great feature, not only for the developers, for all the IT organization. Because, for example, it's a question from the audience from my previous sessions. I need a security middleware. I want to scan all the requests if there is an malicious one in the request. Now you can implement your own security middleware regarding to your needs. I think it's a great feature for Traefik and this kind of products, not only for the Kubernetes or Docker, because you can implement Traefik every well-known project, and I didn't see lots of them. Maybe like the getting started. For example, I didn't use Marathon before, and this is maybe the first time I see its name with the Traefik configuration. But it is very extendable product. You don't need to use only Kubernetes or Docker. You can implement it, and also it works well with cloud solutions. For example, Azure Kubernetes Service (AKS). Maybe we can do a session about implementing Traefik to AKS. So we can define it as an ingress and route our application traffic in AKS. Also, it's a good example. We can use it in the cloud or our local data center.
Yes, definitely. I think it's not just for the Kubernetes support, but outside the cloud native stuff. This is a proxy, you can implement it. It's a very good documentation and a very good community support as well. And if you got stuck up or have some issues going along the way, the people like Mert and others people like Mert, they are doing a tremendous job, putting in the blog post every day, having active community, webinars, every session, and you can go easily watch on the internet if you got up in the surprises. And that's why the project make grades, having a good community support as well. And really appreciate your effort for being people educated around these traffic and cloud native stuff as well. But for the last, really a last question from my side, how I think Traffic Pilot is also looking out the traces of how much time it's take to travel from a request to goes to the destination. It's 3 milliseconds or 2 milliseconds. Then it's got the instant support. Then you can integrate some alerting as well when things goes wrong. It can send out the email or go to the Slack notification as well. Then we have plugins available for let's say with a pod in the Kubernetes landscape. Do we have a pod? Pod has a container, and container has some vulnerabilities. And we all know containers is built from images, and images have vulnerabilities. How to check those vulnerabilities? We have some OPA support, and some other sports as well. So it's a kind of how I perceive the pilot. Is it doing that way?
Maybe it is not that detailed, but it gives you an idea if it is running without any problems or it has any problems. So for example, we have some requests and you can see the request per seconds here. Total request, its duration. Maybe it gives you an idea about if the duration is high, you can say there might be a problem in my containers, and you can set open connections here. It is like a dashboard, not very detailed one. The alerting section is also for health checks, and if it's detected security issue, it sends you an email. As we have some heartbeat emails. Also, webhook is good feature to implement it to your application. But if you want to make vulnerability scanning or need to lots of information about how your system is working, the tracing option is better than using the Traefik pilot. And you can, sorry, where is it? Tracing. Okay, it's under observability section. You can use Traefik logs. By the way, it produces lots of logs. Please do not use debug version. And you can use access logs. Also implement it with these well-known products. You can use tracing. Also, it has lots of implementation. I think this is better for it.
Yes, definitely. I think these are the traffic policies might be a very good things for when you're developing things in the local environment and see to check how the things are going if I want to expect them as moving or not. And when you move to the production setup, then traffic have some integrations for like Jagger, Zipkins, Prometheus, InfluxDB, DataDB. So they have all kind of a metrics and tracing are all kind of these points available, always available for you. And also people written out the blog post as well, how to integrate these solution in using the traffic and in using Prometheus inside the traffic as well. And we have also webinars and all cool kind of stuff. So the last node, can you introduce? Can you introduce what how the traffic communities are, where people find it? Do they have a Slack channel? And you can introduce your community as well. Traffic Istanbul. How people catch you up for that if they want have some share stories or they are very comfortable on these. They can show their knowledge with you. So all kind of the community stuff you can talk about.
Okay. Traffic meetup. Traffic is a meetup group, the global one. And as you know, there are two local communities. One of them is Istanbul Traffic Meetup, and the other one is Islamabad Traffic Meetup group. And you can find lots of sessions in Global Traffic Meetup group. There are lots of events in English. And I decided to start a local one in Turkish because the Traefik is a great product and it's a lots of good references and people excited about it. So I started a local one. And as you can see, we have 150 members and organizing events every month. And we have 4 events. Also, we have a YouTube channel, Traefik Labs Turkey. Okay. Also, you can find our meetup sessions, recordings there. And this is the one I talked about the middlewares. You can find different examples. By the way, I don't like making presentation with slides. That's why there is no presentation in the slide. I want to make more demonstration because people want to see things in action, not only the pictures or the it's the working bed. For example, we have some issues on connecting to the Traefik pilot. So in the real world, you can have issues, and I want to show people it is a normal thing, have technical problems, technical issues. It is not always work as expected in the documentation or the presentations. That's why I am doing this with like this. And also, if you want to learn or have a problem with Traefik, you can reach me on Twitter, and I can share my Twitter address on chat. Okay, and so you can reach any other Traefik ambassadors or the Traefik community or the Traefik community forum. It's a good place to reach out to community, and I can recommend it because there are lots of questions. Also on GitHub page, it's a good place for the community. And GitHub. So this is also a good place. As you can see, there are lots of contributors. And I also recommend using this repository. And also recommend reaching out to you about Traefik products or other cloud native products.
Thank you very much. It's been a first session.
You're welcome.
First of all, I learned a lot of things because I just before the session I know two things on the Traefik side. One, because I use Ingress inside Kubernetes and use Traefik. I'm really happy they have done a tremendous effort in documentation and blogs, and I'll also learn very few things about Traefik Mesh. But with merge session, I learned so many things: how enterprise is different from Traefik Proxy, what Traefik Mesh is for, how it's different from the other service meshes, what the Traefik Proxy is not only for just Kubernetes, but it's outside the integration support is so awesome. You can run it outside the cloud native environments as well. It's an API gateway, edge environment. That's very good. And Traefik Pilot is a go-to tools. You can run it for a small use cases scenario using a dev environment. And also, if you got caught up in any surprises along the way, you can join Mert. I can share is all the link that we discussed today is LinkedIn, Twitter profile. You can, if you got up any surprises, go chat with him, ask help along the way, and he's a very good person to help you out in different scenarios. And he's always been a very helpful person, and he loves helping people, and he loves creating contents that people like learn new things from it. And he also did a session prior to this day before, like it's on, and you can check out in the Traefik Turkey, and that session is going to be help you get up to speed. Traefik meshes, what service meshes are, and how Traefik mesh is different from them. And if you watch that from YouTube, all the chats are available for you, and grab it out and go. And you also have I can share the GitHub repository of Mert as well, what is showing up tonight from his report.
Okay.
You can grab it from.
You can find all the samples in my repository, Traefik resources, and I can also share it on chat.
Yeah. And also, if you are interested to create your own Traefik meetup and you doesn't want to know how to do that, like say you're doing that, you want to set up that meetup in your local environment, in your geography, and want to know how to do that, we have a podcast session for you as well, where I discuss how to become a regular contributor in the Traefik side and Azure community side. Go watch that up as well. And if you are very interested to learn about what the Kubernetes Ingress is and how Traefik Lab is so awesome with it, I have a podcast for you available that I did with Jerome Patazzoni. He's one of the very early person that got introduced to containers, and because of all his effort and his team's effort, containers look so cool and so production worthy right now. So all the links, you grab it up. This is the first ever meetup that we did it virtually with Mert, and we are really appreciated. He take his time, share his knowledge, and share his journey of what the Traefik and cloud native ecosystem and how to find cloud native community in the Traefik side. I'm really appreciated the Mert efforts for joining with me tonight and sharing his knowledge and sharing his energy and all these kind of stuff. Thank you, Mert, and I hope to catch up you again. We can do a sessions on all the product one by one in future as well. But anybody who watch this session, hopefully you can learn a lot of cool stuff. Hope to catch up you all guys again, and thank you, Mert, for showing the webinar.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. See you.